Okay, so first of all, I'd really like to thank Nuqat for inviting me to come this year. I've been a big fan of Nuqat since the very beginning, and I'm very glad to be able to share some of my experiences with you today. Now, as you might have seen, because this was running before I was even on, that our talk today will be about eliminating the capital D, and this capital D is for designer. And we're looking at the value of multidisciplinary collaboration, which I will talk about more. For me personally, I think I was extremely happy about the fact that the theme for this year was collaboration, because it is at the heart of what I do every single day in my life. And this journey of collaboration is what has taken me from being a designer, just focused on design, to working on culture, and from the self to the world. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what design actually has started to mean to me from the beginning of my education. So I started with a bachelor in graphic design, which was I think I started in 2002, and then continued to do my master's, as is said in my bio, in Germany and Scotland. And then this notion of design as a field of study changed a lot. So the designer was no longer defined by this profession that created this end result of a luxury good or advocates for capital consumerism. It became more of a process. So there are a lot of designers nowadays that are concerned with strategic planning, organizational transformation, public policies, and even economic development. So you would see a lot of designers on boards of organizations that are playing a role in this. Designers nowadays really are concerned with bottom-up approaches to think creatively about solving social and environmental issues. And this is something that we would do in the organization as well, which I will tell you about. Designers are no longer these people with big egos that figure out that they know how to do everything themselves, but in fact, they can act as facilitators. So they have an expertise to combine skills and to co-create with others desired outcomes. And now, I mean, in my education as my master's, we were no longer a bunch of graphic designers or interior designers or fashion designers. We were all designers, multidisciplinary, working with other organizations that came from other disciplines as well. So, and the focus of what we do was the human being or the user. So this is why we call it a human-centered process. And we believe in the democratization of design, that it shouldn't be just for those that can afford it, but it should be a democratic right for everybody to have well-designed objects and environments and communications. So we started the MENA Design Research Center in 2011, and our main focus is to investigate the role of design in education, social impact, and entrepreneurship. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the details of every single thing that we've done for the past 3 to 4 years. I will try to just take a gist of some of the most important things that we've done that can show a little bit our concern with collaboration, and then I would like to expand a bit more on what collaboration means, what the values can be, what the challenges can be, especially for us in the MENA region. So when we're talking about education, we're talking about developing design research tools. So these are methodologies that are a combination of design, traditional design and design thinking with social sciences. And it is a way to basically get empirical data and to have qualitative results. And these are the methods that we use when we're working with certain organizations, but this is also something that I would teach in universities through seminars and also through workshops. So having the designer be part of the research process to help them actually come up with results that really matter and are efficient to whatever brief that they're talking about. Social impact. So Tasmim was one of our first projects that was a combination, so a co-creative sort of process where we got designers from different parts of the Arab world and mostly from Lebanon and some from Europe and from the US to work together with NGOs on social and environmental challenges. So we had 9 themes, from migrant integration to sustainable consumerism, and many different social and environmental issues that actually mattered to the Lebanese youth at the time and still are of importance. And each group of designers that were also multidisciplinary, they had to be put in the offices of these NGOs for 3 months, and they had to work together on creating solutions that were more bottom up, because we realized that the methodologies that they used were quite top to bottom. So we wanted to try to see if there's a possibility to use creativity in their problem solving. And we actually had, at the end of this, a really big exhibition, which was the initiation of Beirut Design Week, which I will discuss now. So Beirut Design Week is our biggest collaboration project. And it is so because now it is almost on a national scale. We're very proud to have started in 2012, and I will give you some numbers about how far we've come in the collaboration. So as an overview, it is a series of workshops, exhibitions, lectures, promoting mostly Lebanese designers, but also international designers, helping newcomers as well, and to create a platform where all of the designers and architects can feel like they're a part of, because we felt that this was something that was missing in Beirut. So this is the map of 2014. As you can see, all of these little dots are different locations, and it is quite spread out throughout the city. So every single day is dedicated to a certain area of Beirut and around Beirut. And the idea is to not just have designers that are part of the same discipline to collaborate together, but it is about creating a community within a geographical location as well. So every single day of the week is organized in such a way that it is part of a small neighborhood. And all the public goes to visit the different areas in this neighborhood, whether they're boutiques and workshops, and get to know these designers personally and form a personal bond. So just a sort of overview of different numbers. In 2012, we started with 52 designer participants, and in 2014, we're up to 93. On our social media, which we haven't really personally put that much effort to from the beginning. The first year we had about 1,600, and now we're up to 12,000. And from the events, within that 1 week in 2012, we had 70, and this number has doubled in 2014. And the locations were from 54 to 87 as well in just 3 years. Now, there are different types of collaborations, and maybe I will get a little bit technical, and there will be a bit more information here, so bear with me, but I hope it's worthwhile, because I try to do it in such a way that it could be useful for all people that work in culture and not just necessarily designers. So the different types of collaboration can be cooperations, can be partnerships, which are more of a legal status. It can be sponsorship, which is sometimes financial or services. It can be interaction from the public. It can even be a permission. So if it's in collaboration with a municipality in a city, the permission to do something in public space could also be a form of collaboration. It can be support. It can be association, meaning that when you use someone's credibility to actually put your standards up higher. And I think collaboration can also be thought of in a more retrospective sense, where you can build on the work of others. But of course, especially since we started the Beirut Design Week and we started working within this more cultural globe, we realized that there are a lot of challenges that we face in the MENA region. And these challenges can be social, cultural, political, economical, and even geographic. So just last week, I was in a training with UNIC with 16 different cultural managers from the region. And I was asking them about the different challenges that they also face in their cultural projects. So this list is sort of a comprehensive kind of empirical data that I've collected around, and some of my personal experience working in Lebanon. So it's a variety of different reasons, of different levels in the region. So for example, in Lebanon, we have a big problem of sectarianism and a lack of dialogue. And this, even though lots of the cultural actors do not feel like they're a part of it, they still are in so many different ways. There are many people that are working on the same initiatives, but there really isn't that strong dialogue that is actually helping them collaborate together and move forward. There is a very strong dependence on foreign intervention, whether it is from funding or also from different agendas. So it's quite possible that people who work in the cultural sector would want to look more towards European organizations to actually form something rather than to do it internally. There's, of course, in many other countries, and I could speak mostly for Lebanon, a lack of infrastructure for these things, a lack of state support and nurturing. So this relationship between state is also something that needs to be done, because most of the investments that come to Lebanon and the actual cultural policies are formed by the market. We have very limited funding, and when we have limited funding, it means everyone's trying to grab something from a small pot so people can get very competitive and refuse to collaborate together. We don't have also this tradition of archiving. So in Lebanon, we have this sort of collective amnesia, you can think of in ways. And I'm sure many of you who have taught in universities realize that sometimes there are so many projects that are being repeated, but nobody's actually looking at who did something else before to build on that knowledge. So everybody kind of just starts from the same level. An interesting theory is the relationship of citizens with the public and how this can affect collaboration as well. So there's a theory that says that there are 3 different kinds of relationships that citizens can have with the public space around them. They can either think that it belongs to everyone, they can think that it belongs to no one, or they can think that it belongs to the state. And these are 3 different ways of dealing with people as well. Because if you felt like a space belonged to everyone, then you would want to definitely participate with others in the public as well. And you would maybe not care if you just felt like it didn't belong to anyone or to the state. So in terms of collaboration as well, I think we also have a strong dependence on PR and instead of qualifications. So this means that we have this sort of traditions of constantly working with the same people that we know or people that know other people we know, instead of actually depending on finding new talent and new people and new qualifications. Of course, this is not a general rule, but it can be something that has been quite obvious over the years. Our educational institutions, schools and universities, do not really encourage group work. When I was doing my bachelor thesis, when I was doing my bachelor work, for the 4 years that I studied in Lebanon, I don't think I ever did a single group project. But when I traveled away and then started studying design in European countries, all of my projects were group work, and that really helped me develop this idea of collaboration. So just to go on quickly over them, I think we also have a lot of emotional and reactional attitudes in our culture that can sometimes not facilitate this idea of working together. We also have a lack of specializations, which means that because we'd never had this real big industrial revolution, we don't teach these different kinds of specializations for people. So sometimes people can think that they can do a lot of this passe-partout sort of idea that they can do everything in one person. There's no enforcement of copyrights. The law really exists, but because there is no enforcement, so a lot of people might be unwilling to share information with others. And of course, there's also a lack of research and innovation, and we've got a copy-paste mentality in many of our design projects at least. And not to mention geopolitical borders and visa issues. We don't live in an area where it is easy for us to collaborate with our neighbors because of all of these issues that we're all familiar with. And finally, cultural policies, which is a whole big topic about how each different kind of country and the state decides on agendas and on spending budgets on the different kinds of projects that they think are worthwhile. But as designers, we think of challenges in ways to turn them into opportunities. So this is a designer's intervention that basically understands the different problems that we have and to figure out what can be done in order to make this a better outcome. So with regards to all of the challenges that I just mentioned, I never really have a pessimistic view over these things. And I always see these as new opportunities for new projects and new work to be done. So the questions that could be answering these challenges are, how can we encourage dialogue between people, especially in like a country like Lebanon? How can we develop ways to be self-sufficient and sustainable and not be dependent? Are there ways to involve the state more efficiently in our projects? Can we simplify methods of data collection and archiving to build on the work of others? How to develop healthy relationships between the citizens and the public space? How can we encourage more group work in schools and create awareness on copyrights and Creative Commons? Are there networks that facilitate mobility across difficult borders? And there are lots of them as well. How can civil society influence cultural policies? Is there a need for some institutions that are intermediary that can facilitate collaboration between people? And can collaboration be actually engraved in the strategic planning of an organization? And this last one is something that I'm going to expand on a bit more, because I think many of you here are either working in culture or have an organization. And I think embedding the notion of collaboration in your strategic planning can be very important value for the development and the organizational growth. So what would push individuals and organizations to collaborate more? Is it a matter of creating value? Is it a matter of ownership so that whoever works on this project also feels like this project belongs to them and not just to one person? Is it a matter of agency? So these are basically some ideas that can create an idea of benefits of collaboration from an organizational perspective. When we're talking about strategic planning, we're talking about different spheres of work, and this is kind of a general overview of the different parts. So we're looking at what is it that collaboration can add. If we actually forced more collaboration within the organization, there would be a diversification of programs and of resources. And this is something that has been very clear to us with Beirut Design Week. There will be an increase in volume of production as well, which is always something that can be actually part of organizational growth. There's larger commercialization of programs and distribution. So the more people that talk about it and work on it, the more it will be expanded. Audience development and market expansion, something similar but more guided towards your audience or your market. And of course, this could be a chance to build a larger network of local, regional, and global players. And there is the notion of intersectoral sectorial linkage, which means that we can have this multidisciplinary idea of working with people from completely different fields and together to create something new. So that's it for now. I hope that you might have some questions, and I look forward to your collaboration. Here are my emails if you're looking forward to any of that. Thank you.
Okay. والله تستاهل أكثر من كذا. She deserves better. Come on, guys. Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much, Doreen. I thought that was a really, really interesting presentation, and especially the challenges to collaboration. I thought each one of those points could be a whole presentation on its own, but I was really struck by what you said about the notion of public space in our region and how it's so different. And I was hoping maybe you could tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I'm no expert in public space, but I think that I think recently we have kind of developed some new ways of understanding public space, and I can speak for Beirut for itself because now we have a lot of nonprofit organizations that have a pure focus on rethinking of public space as part of the citizens' rights and a way for people to actually have a healthier lifestyle. So we do have a lot of initiatives actually that are into creating more different kinds of picnics in parks, or creating an awareness about how to keep things clean, or actually doing a lot of events that are in public space. And one of the ways that we try to do it is that every year in Beirut Design Week, we either have a tour of different areas that are considered public, or we also have interventions, public interventions. So we kind of force people to create some sort of a community. We basically enforce some dialogue between two different kinds of people within a public space, like on the street. And now, when we talk about public, and this can be quite expanded, it's not just about a physical space, but we can also think of the media as a public space as well. So all of the communications that everybody in a mainstream way also receives is a place where you can influence. And public space is also really important in the sense that it is a means to reach a lot of people that are not necessarily part of your group. I don't know if that answers your question, but we can have a conversation about it more later if you like.
Hello. Hi, Doreen. I just wanted to thank you for that very insightful presentation. With your experience in collaboration and collaborating with various entities, where do you think trust and collaboration connect, and how is it defined in each collaboration?
That's a very good question. In the beginning, so I'll speak for myself personally, I generally come from this notion that I used to sort of live in a la-la land. So because I like design and I like what I do, and I was always grown up in a way to just be really friendly with everyone, I expected that when I start working and collaborating on something like this, that everybody would be the same. It's not like that at all. And there are a lot of different mechanisms that have kind of forced us to be that way, especially in some parts of the world. I think trust is something that you really need to build, and it's easier said than done, because it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of patience to understand if this is something that is useful to me and is something that I like. What can I find to make it useful or beneficial or efficient to this other person that I'm working with? What is it that I can create to make this person feel like this is something for both of us? And most importantly, if something goes wrong, I should figure out a way to make the situation better or find ways. I mean, you shouldn't, because lots of things go wrong in collaborations. If you let go, if you just say, okay, this is not my problem, I don't want to deal with it, there is no trust. That person will never work with you again. And this notion of what I said about people being reactional and emotional, it can easily affect it like that. If somebody doesn't like working with you once, they'll probably never work with you again, and they might even talk about you badly otherwise. So this is an extra effort that needs to be done in our part of the world to build this kind of trust. And it's a day-to-day thing. You learn from your mistakes. You try to ask people a lot more what they want. You try to listen a lot more. And I guess this is how, it'll never be perfect, but it's a way to get there.